What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below, the best gaming related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. The gaming world has been buzzing about a spiritual successor to Counter-Strike, that being Valorant, guys. A game, first-person shooter that is going to be coming out here in the very foreseeable future by none other than Riot Games. The ones, of course, who made League of Legends, and these guys are taking an extremely aggressive approach to really take over gaming as a whole. They are not only jumping into the first-person shooter genre, but a number of other genres that spread across gaming, that being like the card games, like as in the form of Legends of Runeterra, going up against Hearthstone and games like that, and a number of other games that are coming out, kind of really within the League of Legends IP. And within that world, well, of course, Valorant, guys, is the really big one that everybody's talking about and the buzz is going around. So we're going to talk about everything that we know so far about this game. So let's talk about it. Valorant, guys, release date, closed beta, gameplay, and everything that we know by Steven Mesner of PC Gamer. Valorant is taking on Counter-Strike Global Offensive, first announced as Project A during Riot's 10-year anniversary stream. The 5v5 FPS blends the character abilities of Overwatch with 5-on-5 gunplay that rewards quick reflexes and precision, and Riot says it's put a huge amount of work into ensuring lag and wonky hit detection don't get in the way. So, look, really quick, guys. Obviously, we've been able to see quite a bit of footage so far of Valorant, and really this does feel very much so like a spiritual successor to Counter-Strike, but it's got kind of, you see glimpses of other games, glimpses of Call of Duty, glimpses of Overwatch, and this game feels, to me at least, like a combination of multiple games, even though it really does feel like that direct spiritual successor to CSGO, and they are, like I said, taking an aggressive approach to take over the first-person shooter genre as we know it. Those bold technical promises are the primary way Riot intends to differentiate Valorant from its direct competition, which includes Overwatch, CSGO, and Rainbow Six Siege. Even if it does have the best netcode, though, that won't mean anything if Valorant's mix of quick time to kill combat and character abilities doesn't feel distinct enough. So, how to get into the Valorant closed beta? Obviously, guys, this has been something that, you know, people had been wondering, and people, I mean, for a while, were really trying to get beta codes, and it was something that, I mean, people were like selling beta codes, and it was like, it was a wild ordeal when this was going on. But they, of course, say don't buy a closed beta account or you could be banned by Riot. So that's something that you definitely want to know, guys, about all of that. Now, as far as the release date is concerned, Riot hasn't officially confirmed a release date for Valorant, but it's planning to release it in the summer of 2020. The exact release date will depend on feedback received during Valorant's beta. So here's the thing, guys. We're probably, like I said, you know, most likely we're going to be seeing this in the summer, which is huge. But you want to know something? This is, after this game got announced, I was talking to a number of people, and the craziest things like revolving around Valorant was this game, they basically were stating that they were coming for everyone in the first-person shooter genre as well as pretty much every other genre in gaming. Like, they are Riot Games, who's only been known for League of Legends up to this point, is really taking an approach here, guys. Now, that release date, I mean, it's going to be, you know, coming closer and closer every single day whenever the date is decided by Riot, and Valve needs to know that this game's coming. And I mean, it was getting massive numbers on Twitch. Valorant sets a viewer record with 1.7 million on Twitch. Valorant will have a battle pass and sell cosmetics, but it won't have loot boxes. And then they say Riot is on a crusade to eradicate Peeker's advantage in Valorant. So, guys, there's so much footage. I mean, I had watched so much footage of Valorant. You know, a lot of the big streamers were, of course, streaming it for a long period of time. And I gotta say, overall, guys, from what I got from this, from watching it, it seems like it's going to be an easy game to play, but a very hard game to master, similar to games like CSGO in the same genre. Now, a lot of people don't like the graphics. I think the graphics are really, they're unique. They're really, I really like the way it looks. It's very bright, very colorful. Reminds me of like Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 3 in the Call of Duty series. But I really think, guys, that this game has a real shot at dethroning some of these other big players in the first-person shooter genre. Now, CSGO, saying that it's going to dethrone CSGO, maybe it'll dethrone it as the biggest FPS, but I don't think it's going to kill off CSGO by any stretch. Now, games like Overwatch very well might get killed off completely from that, but that's a conversation for a different day, guys. So as we said, Valorant is a tactical 5v5 character-based shooter set in a near-future version of Earth. There will be around 10 characters at launch, with more coming. All the characters have a set of 4 unique abilities, 2 of which you have to buy with money earned between rounds. At the same time, you buy weapons and armor. So essentially, guys, it's basically like an economy within CSGO. I mean, guys, look, they basically took everything that worked in CSGO and they're trying to amp it up with obviously having, character abilities and such, which is similar to Overwatch. But I think what Riot Games is thinking is they're probably thinking to themselves, look, we own League of Legends, and all these different characters have different abilities, obviously. So they kind of know that space of different characters having different abilities, releasing different characters with different abilities. And so they probably feel pretty confident in establishing something there within the first-person shooter genre, and that's exactly what they're doing here. I mean, they're taking, obviously, a similar system to what CSGO has, and they're trying to amp it up, though, with different player abilities. Each person's going to have a different role, which you do in CSGO, but it's going to be amplified because it's all going to come down to the character abilities. Once you've chosen your character, you're locked into them for the entirety of a match, which consists of up to 24 rounds with sudden death in the event of a tie. Currently, there is only one main mode, bomb defusal. Just like in Counter-Strike, one team must plant a bomb at a bomb site while the other team defends. Basically like a search and destroy kind of style. Though the abilities seem inspired by Overwatch, Valorant has some key distinctions that make it a lot more like Counter-Strike. For one, each character's ultimate ability has an extremely long cooldown that can last multiple rounds, so you won't be constantly firing wall-piercing arrows, laying trip mines, or triggering poise cloud ambushes. And I think that's a really good thing, guys. Obviously, Riot is very good overall at balancing their game, and I mean, because they've only really had League of Legends, so they've only had one game at this point to balance, but at the same time, they're very good at it. I think that, in my opinion, they're going to do a really good job with this. They're going to deal with this with extreme care, in my personal opinion. Now, characters also aren't bound to using one type of gun. At the beginning of each round, you can purchase a variety of different weapons in addition to some secondary abilities that have a limited number of charges. But Valorant's combat emphasizes skilled gunplay more than high-powered abilities. Now, who are the Valorant characters, guys? So, though the roster will likely expand in the future, Riot said it's aiming to have at least 10 characters ready for Valorant's launch. Though we haven't seen or played all 10, here's a quick overview. So you got Sova, Phoenix, Cypher, Jet, Viper, Brimstone, Sage, Omen, Breach, and Raze. All pretty cool names. I like all those names. Each one, guys, obviously has, distinct abilities. And here's the thing is that they're really, I believe, guys, they're going to be going really long-term with this game. You can just kind of tell that with League of Legends, they don't plan on making a League of Legends 2. At least that's what Riot Games has said. So Valorant, I would expect this being a long, drawn-out game for years upon years to come. League of Legends, guys, is the biggest game in the world, essentially. I mean, you could argue Fortnite and such, but for how long of a period of time League of Legends has basically been at the top, they've done an incredible job there. Think of that, but think of it in an FPS. That's Valorant for you, and there's a real possibility of that happening. But there's also a possibility that this could absolutely crash and burn, which some people are pointing out. Now, each one of these, like I said, Sova, she fires magic arrows. Phoenix can curve flashbangs around corners. Cypher, he's a defensive powerhouse who can lay trip mines. Jet can leap in the air and throw knives for quick surprise kills. personal favorite of mine. Viper can unleash poison clouds that blind enemies. Brimstone calls in orbital bombardments. Sage is Valorant's resident medic. He can heal or revive allies. Omen, or shifty rogue who can get behind enemy lines. Breach is a seismic force that disorients enemies and ignores the boundaries of the walls. And then you got Raze, an explosive expert that can root out enemies with cluster grenades. So each one has very interesting, unique abilities, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the balancing act is, because I think with CSGO, it's kind of more cut and dry. Everyone's got, as far as the health is concerned and all of that, it's generally speaking relatively the same, but there's obviously there's so much more balancing in a game like this because you got special abilities with each of the characters. Makes it very interesting, makes it really tricky, but if it works, it can work, it can be incredible for this game and just for the following, the fan base, as well as just as from a viewership perspective, because I would have to think Valorant is going to try, guys, to certainly go into an esports direction. I don't think there's any debate about that. Now, as far as the weapons are concerned, guys, like Counter-Strike, weapons in Valorant are purchased at the beginning of each round, meaning no character is stuck using one type of weapon. After messing with Valorant's arsenal for a few hours, it's clear that most of its weapons have a direct Counter-Strike analog. If you're familiar with AWPs and AKs, you should be right at home. So you got sidearms, SMGs, shotguns, rifles, sniper rifles, heavies, and melee. So at this point, guys, there's a number of different weapons. I love this sniper rifles. I love them in basically every, FPS game, whether we're talking Counter-Strike or we're talking Call of Duty. I just have always loved sniper rifles in these games. So the Marshal and Operator are kind of the two that I really, kind of like drawn to. But there's certainly, pick your poison, essentially, at this point, guys. Now, very important, microtransactions. This is something that obviously people are very, concerned about, how it's going to work. Riot hasn't gone into detail about how Valorant's free-to-play progression in microtransactions will work, but it has given us some basic information. Each character will be unlockable through regular play, which suggests that players won't immediately have access to the full roster, similar to a lot of free-to-play shooters like Apex Legends. Microtransactions will be available, but players don't have to worry about them being used to gain any kind of competitive advantage. Though the full scope of purchasable items isn't confirmed, players can expect to customize their character through player cards, sprays, logos, or symbols that can be sprayed onto the environment, and a gun buddy, which is a cute little cosmetic that hangs from your gun. So, guys, I've said it on a number of occasions on my YouTube channel that microtransactions never really bothered me that much because I never really got into buying a lot of microtransactions. I mean, sometimes with DLC, buying like downloadable content, that being like extra map packs and Call of Duty, got into that. But when it came to like cosmetic items, I just really never got into it. I always like earning my skins on my weapons or on my characters and such. What I will say about them is this. For those of you who like really just don't like microtransactions, at the end of the day, what it comes down to me is that microtransactions, as long as that they are not deceptive to the consumer and that there's not a pay to win kind of mentality or a competitive advantage, I think that they're fine, right? Especially a game that's going to be free to play. You have all the opportunities in the world to, just play this game for free forever, at least, we think. And, putting microtransactions in there is going to help this game continue to basically run, right? To keep the servers going and such, and help Riot continue to, churn out profits to continue expanding upon the game. So I totally get it, especially from a free-to-play perspective, guys. I'm all right with it as long as it doesn't have any type of, malpractices or any kind of ways in which that they are deceptive to us as consumers. With the microtransactions, I'm okay. I'm okay with microtransactions overall, especially in a free-to-play game. But let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. Now, this is a big thing as well, the anti-cheat system. So Riot has indicated that it's investing a lot of time and energy into solving some of the biggest problems facing multiplayer shooters, cheating and lag. On the cheating front, Riot has developed a new kernel-level anti-cheat system that it says should make most forms of hacking impossible, making Valorant extra secure against aim hacks. What's interesting, though, is that the development team also designed every feature with possible exploits in mind. One example given in our hands-on preview is that the crosshair doesn't change colors when it passes over an enemy, because dishonest players could easily write a script that checks those pixels and automatically fires a shot when they change colors. So it looks like they're really on top of this, guys. I mean, all in all, it seems absolutely like Riot is on top of the cheating and such, and they are like they're not going to have it. I'm sure you're going to get banned and things of that nature when they catch you with that, and it will be very swift, I would assume. Now, back in 2014, Riot started partnering with different ISPs around the world to physically add routers into their data centers that would ensure League of Legends players had a more consistent lower ping across the US and Europe. Valorant will use that same infrastructure, and with Riot Direct, Riot predicts that 70% of players will access regional Valorant servers with a ping lower than 35 milliseconds. Pretty impressive. So, overall, guys, this is all very exciting, in my personal opinion. It sounds so good. Like, I just hope it's not, like, too good to be true kind of thing. All in all, what I've seen so far, I love what I see of this game. This game is just so unique, guys, for a first-person shooter. It feels like Overwatch, right? It feels like CSGO. It feels a little bit like Call of Duty, like Rainbow Six. But it's got its own thing, and that's what I really like about this game. And Riot is just kind of carefully, being very particular with it. They didn't want to do a direct rip-off of a game like CSGO, even though there's very similarities to it. They're saying that's a spiritual successor to that. It's not a direct rip from Overwatch, but it's got things in there that feel like it, similar to Call of Duty and Rainbow Six. So I'm very excited, guys, for this game, all in all. Everything that we know so far, we know quite, we're starting to know more and more, especially after we got hands-on with this game. The question lies, though, in when the game fully releases, is this going to be really the next big thing? Is this going to be like League of Legends, but a first-person shooter? Let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section below. Is this technically the CS killer, or is it the Overwatch killer? What is this game? Or is it just going to coexist with other first-person shooters in the space? It'll be very interesting to see as time goes, guys. And we're not going to find out right away, right? It's going to get massive viewership at first. It's about the consistency over time. Are we going to see that similar to what we've seen in League of Legends over the years? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Valorant content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Fallout, like many games out there, pretty much every AAA title out there, guys, has massive peaks and valleys throughout the course of its franchise's history, and Fallout is no exception to that. So what I want to talk about here in this segment of the show is, where is Fallout 5, the very highly anticipated continuation of Fallout 4, and obviously we've had some missteps along the way in the Fallout franchise, most notably probably Fallout 76, which some people did enjoy, thought it was a pretty good experience, but then of course not most, I would say the majority of the fan base are really looking for a true continuation of the franchise, not so much maybe a multiplayer experience, but a single player experience with a massive world and plenty of things that you can do, and just a true continuation of this franchise is what I think everyone is hoping for in the foreseeable future. Well, I want to talk about, where is Fallout 5 at this point, and when can we maybe expect this game in the future? So let's talk about it. In an article that was written by Heather Wald of Games Radar, 4 years on from the last single-player Fallout entry, we turn our attention to Fallout 5. After Fallout 4's release in 2015, many have been yearning for the next adventure in the wastelands to blast its way onto our screens. Sure, we've had Fallout 76 to partially fill the void, but it doesn't quite cut the classic single-player experience. Realistically speaking, since is busy working on the long-awaited Elder Scrolls 6 and its new IP Starfield, we're likely not going to be seeing Fallout 5 for quite a while yet. Despite that, rumors continue to circulate about the next installment's existence, and given that Fallout 4 was a runaway success for the studio, it's surely only a matter of time before Fallout 5 is officially announced. And this is very true, guys. I mean, when we talk about the main additions to the franchise, 1 through 4, as in the Fallout games, they've all been very successful. Now, Fallout 76 was, I believe, was pretty successful as well, but it was certainly a step back. It wasn't, a direct continuation of like Fallout 4. So I think that what the fan base is really waiting for is that single player experience, because Fallout 76, guys, is a multiplayer experience, and that's great. I think it's good to have those things, but I think the way in which they went about it, we're not going to get into that in this video, but the way in which they went about it, guys, was just not very, a lot of us just don't agree with the direction they took 76. So now looking to Fallout 5 at this point, when can we maybe kind of expect this game to come out? Because like it said, Starfield as well as Elder Scrolls 6 are the next couple of games in line. So we might be waiting a number of years until Fallout 5 ends up coming out. In terms of a release date, it really is anyone's guess, but a little under a year ago, reports surfaced claiming that the studio was already thinking about Fallout 5. In an interview with GameStar about Fallout 76, the interviewer asked if the studio planned to bring multiplayer into any of their big upcoming feature titles such as Fallout 5 or Elder Scrolls 6, to which Howard replied, "We want to keep them as single player. While it's not exactly out and out confirming Fallout 5 officially, it shows the studio has been paying some mind to the next Fallout." So, I agree with this. I think that they're definitely talking. They're bringing it up, right? They're kind of bringing up, Fallout 5. Even speaking the name Fallout 5 is basically saying, okay, this is on their mind. The karma system has been a mainstay feature in the Fallout series since Fallout 1, but it was one element that didn't make its way into Fallout 4. The karma system really makes you feel like your choices actually have an effect on the world around you. If you go about murdering everyone, you'll get yourself a nasty reputation. People will view and treat you differently as a result. It helps to add a deeper level of immersion to the RPG aspect of the series. It makes you think twice about the choices you run with. Without karma, it felt like every choice you made in Fallout 4 only served to change the way your companions view you, which felt a little hollow in comparison. I 100% agree with this. I would say bringing back the karma system, if you're going to have choices within the game, okay, so if there's going to be choices, which obviously I don't think that they're going to go away from that, but if they're going to have choices in Fallout 5, absolutely bringing back the karma system makes complete sense. Keep multiplayer out and bring co-op in. Fallout 76 does have some things going for it, but if it's taught us anything, it's that multiplayer isn't always the answer. The Fallout series has always been a strong single-player delivering, and with so many multiplayer games finding their way onto the market, it's hard not to hope Fallout stays true to its roots. Since Howard has already said it will be a single-player focused, we shouldn't have to worry too much, but it would be great to see co-op play introduced alongside single-player, like a Dark Souls 3. So look, I disagree with this. Here's why. Fallout 76 is essentially only a multiplayer experience, okay? So I don't think that having Fallout 5 come out and say, okay, it's only single player, I don't think that that's the answer, in my opinion. Like, sure, I think people want the single-player experience, but I think people wouldn't mind having a multiplayer as well as co-op modes as well. It's a full package deal. If you're getting everything in it, multiplayer, co-op, and a single-player experience, that's going to keep you coming back to the franchise even after you beat the campaign a couple of times. So I disagree. I think putting multiplayer in there, even if it's similar to 76, as long as you have the single player story that's, immense and has a lot of stuff that you can do in it, as well as some co-op modes, come on, let's be real. If you could have everything in there, it's like having the best of all those worlds. Now, building settlements in Fallout 4 was a great new feature that finally gave all that junk you find lying around a purpose, but it'd be nice to this polished and refined so it's a little less clunky in places, although I'll admit that some of the best Fallout 4 settlements have somehow overcome the quirks. So, as far as the building system goes, I agree. I gotta say I agree with that overall. As far as the dialogue options, variety is the spice of life, as the saying goes, so we're all for more choices in the next Fallout. As fun as the sarcastic option could be, the choice of just 4 options to reply with just felt a little thin in Fallout 4, and while a similar amount of choice was offered in previous titles, it'd be good to see the next offer up an extra helping. So, I mean, I could go either way with this. I mean, I thought that having, around 4 different choices is pretty good. That's giving you 4 choices. I guess if you want to have more, I mean, why not? But I don't think that that's necessarily like a must, in my personal opinion. I think having the choices that you make, making them like more meaningful, even if it's only 4 different choices, having each one of those is like a meaningful choice. I think that's more important than just saying having like 6 to 10 choices. So I'm on the fence with that one. Now, as interesting as the Commonwealth was, we hope Fallout 5 will continue this series trend of introducing us to a new setting. Having a new setting keeps everything feeling fresh and exciting. It's always interesting to see a new location with Fallout's retro-futuristic flair. From Washington, D.C. in Fallout 3 to New Vegas in Fallout New Vegas, right up to Boston in Fallout 4, the thought of being able to explore what a new location has to offer makes the thought of the next Fallout all the more enticing. And I 100% agree with this. I think having somewhere different is going to be definitely something they're probably going to do because they've been doing that. But I also think that it's a must. I mean, you want to have things that are familiar in terms of like it feels like a Fallout game, but you want to have different environments that you're traveling around and even having like, a travel buddy like a dog or something that's in the game that kind of is there with you throughout every step of the way. I think would also be really awesome too. As far as where I would want this to be, I don't really know, guys. I just kind of want Bethesda to make to kind of go somewhere different. Doesn't really matter that much to me. Make it interesting enough, obviously, but it doesn't matter. As long as it's somewhere different and things feel different but still feel like Fallout, I'll be happy with that. But overall, guys, I think at this very point, Fallout 5 is a ways off. Between Starfield as well as The Elder Scrolls 6, we're talking, I mean, we haven't really seen further information on either of those 2 titles, so we're still waiting on release dates for those games, and then Fallout 5 would be coming out probably after that. I mean, I would be surprised if they're going to try to force it in between those 2 games or something. So let's just say this. Let's say that Elder Scrolls is the next game that's coming out, and let's say it comes out in 2021. Say a year after that, we start hearing more information or so about Starfield. Maybe it comes out later in, 2022, or it comes out in 2023. And then throughout the course of, I would say 2022, we'll probably hear something about Fallout 5. And then when we move into 2023 is probably when we could probably expect to either get all the information, or we're definitely going to be seeing Fallout 5. It could be sooner than that. It could be further off than that. But I think if you just think about what other projects they're working on currently, and they're continuously adding things to Fallout, 76, that being like the Wastelands expansion, and they're kind of adding things to that. So I would assume that Fallout 5 is probably in the early stages of like, the talks, right? They're talking about it. They're probably have initial concepts and things of that nature. But I don't think that they're like developing it yet, because I think they're still working on 76. They're probably just coming up with some initial concepts for Fallout 5. So I think it's a ways off, but I think that it is going to be on the way at some point in the foreseeable future, guys. So if you're a huge fan of Fallout, don't worry. I think that we will be seeing a Fallout 5 at some point or another. Just hopefully it doesn't get near the backlash that Fallout 76 did. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. When do you think we will expect to be able to play Fallout 5? And do you want to see a Fallout 5, or do you think they should stop the series altogether? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Fallout 5 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. One of the most beloved franchises in recent times when it comes to video games, guys, is certainly the Mass Effect franchise. This is a game that has spanned over the course of time, and we've been seeing a number of additions to this franchise, and have been yearning as a franchise, or I should say more so of a fan base of the franchise, wanting a continuation. And so in this last segment of the show, I want to talk about Mass Effect 4 versus that of a Mass Effect Andromeda 2, and kind of compare these two as far as, what the fan base wants, which I think is all obvious to all of us, like which one we want, but at the same time really kind of breaking it down to, is it really all cut and dry, one way or another? Or are there things in between here that we got to look at to really kind of make a good decision on this? And kind of wondering, what are the developers thinking of doing at this point? So let's kind of talk about it, guys. In an article that was written by Bryn Gelbert of Game Rant, since the launch of Mass Effect Andromeda in 2017, the sci-fi franchise that defined a generation of video games has laid mostly dormant. DLC and future plans for Mass Effect were canceled as BioWare became a studio in transition. It still is. This year, Anthem proved to be a flop that had a nearly impossible time growing a player base. It seemed like BioWare is a studio in the middle of a big pivot or about to be shuttered. However, it does seem like sequels to Dragon Age and Mass Effect are in the works in various stages of production. So I guess the big question is, guys, is Mass Effect 4 or Andromeda 2? The obvious answer to what fans want from Mass Effect is, of course, Mass Effect 4. But what exactly does it mean to make a game called Mass Effect 4 after the finality and controversy of the ending of Mass Effect 3? What does this mean as more than just a branding move? It's hard not to wonder which plot lines Mass Effect 4 would explore. After the cataclysmic ending of Mass Effect 3, there would have to be a major time jump to tell a story about rebuilding the Milky Way galaxy. Ideally, this game could showcase how the choices Shepard and his crewmate in the original trilogy impacted the state of the world in the future. That means, unfortunately, fan-favorite crew members likely can't be brought back to a new story. There just aren't any great ways to justify it narratively. So, here's the first thing I'll say. Shepard's story, guys, is essentially over, in my opinion. I don't think that they should try to milk this thing. Like, you shouldn't be playing as Shepard anymore. I mean, if he's going to be somehow come back in the story, he should be a side character. He should not be the main character. They should be moving onwards to someone else. And that's why the one thing I really liked about Andromeda was it being kind of different galaxy, different characters, felt like familiar to Mass Effect, but certainly just felt like it was different in its own way. And that's why I wish Andromeda did good, because if it did, not that we would get an Andromeda 2, but we could have like both worlds kind of merge in the form of like the Mass Effect, the trilogy as well as Andromeda. Obviously, we didn't get that. In Andromeda, the series jumped to a new galaxy and didn't actually introduce many new species and still focused largely on humans. A big leap for Mass Effect 4 would be to take the franchise to a new place in the universe, a galaxy in a different time and place with new aliens and societies with new problems to solve. I agree with that. For the purpose of EA trying to sell a Mass Effect game again after the bad blood that Andromeda has caused, Mass Effect 4 is the easy prediction. It is direct and to the point, implying that this is a reboot of the franchise and a return to the greatness of the numbered games. So I agree. Basically, what could happen here, it's easy for EA to write Andromeda off as just a spin-off. Mass Effect 4, that's the game that's the game that the fans want. But with the name comes great pressure. If Mass Effect 4 were to fail, it is hard to see the franchise existing beyond what could be the final attempt to make it relevant again. I mean, look, I kind of disagree with it. I think that everyone's going to have their opinions on Mass Effect, on a Mass Effect 4, regardless how you look at it. I think that making a different galaxy, new characters and things of that nature, I think that's the way that they need to go about this. Don't be bringing back Shepard. If you do, bring him back as like a side character. Don't make him, one of the main characters, or just have like a really crazy reveal at the end of the game to really keep you wanting to play more. And that's where they could continue onwards with like Mass Effect 5 and so on and so forth. It makes a lot of sense for Mass Effect to return to a numbered format to make Andromeda seem like more of an outlier. Mass Effect 4 would likely have to be a huge departure for the story and setting, but remember that there were plot lines that didn't quite get wrapped up in Andromeda. It's safe to say that some had barely even started to develop, with information being held for planned DLC and future sequels. Originally, DLC was planned for Mass Effect Andromeda that could wrap up the Quarian arc, that plotline that was introduced in the game. This was a big part of the game that felt unfinished in a sense, and the developers never got a chance to wrap up that storyline. There is interesting room to make a sequel here that could be interesting. Resolving this issue would not necessarily mean making Mass Effect Andromeda 2 if somehow the next Mass Effect game could incorporate or make reference to the fate of the Quarian arc. So, look, the failures of Mass Effect Andromeda were not just on the technical aspects of the game being a bit of a mess. The characters were mostly human and largely not as compelling as the characters of the original trilogy. In many ways, the crew defines a Mass Effect game. It's why a game like Mass Effect 2, which is largely not concerned with an overwhelming, overarching plot, but solving problems for crew members, can be one of the strongest games of the decade. A sequel to Andromeda would have to pick up with these characters many players didn't care for, a setback BioWare wouldn't have to deal with if it just made a new game. And I agree. I mean, look, did I like Andromeda? I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was okay. I think I liked it probably more than a lot of people did. I thought it was just different. There was something there. I felt like there was something there. It just didn't fully connect with everyone. And it didn't fully connect with me either. But I liked it probably more than a lot of people liked Andromeda, guys. I wouldn't say it's better than, the original trilogy, but I thought it was okay, like, for what it was. Now, for what it was, it feels like it should have been just kind of like a side story, that was just there, right? That, existed with the rest of the Mass Effect games. But when they were trying to make those statements that this is a part of the story and everything, that they want to make a full, continue the franchise with Andromeda, I just don't think that was a good move for them, not knowing what the reception was going to be for Andromeda. So I think, unfortunately, Andromeda needs to be kind of kicked to the curb, essentially. And I think that Mass Effect 4 has to be the next thing. Or just Mass Effect, like a Mass Effect reboot completely would, or I should say a soft reboot, that would probably really help the franchise kind of take the next steps forward. But Mass Effect 4 just makes more sense, guys. It just does. Anything we see from BioWare following the response to Andromeda will, without a doubt, be a completely new game from anything in the Mass Effect universe. But chances of it trying to go down the rabbit hole by trying to launch a whole new sub-brand again, entitling the game Mass Effect 4 would allow the game to gather immediate hype and also put it in a good place to start a new trilogy in the vein of the numbered Star Wars movies. But a bold move would be to break the chains of the cover shooter era that so thoroughly defined the era when the Mass Effect trilogy was originally released. The only way to have a Mass Effect game break new ground would be to change the combat mechanics. Fans want an RPG with the dialogue options and role-playing depth of the Mass Effect trilogy, but in terms of what it can play like, the future is flexible. Possibilities would take the game in either direction of action or strategy still remain on the table. If you were to ask me, guys, I feel like action and strategy are kind of like, I would love to see those merge, but if you were to ask me, like, which one, I like the action games more, personally, as far as, like, this type of game, right? Strategy games are incredible, but I think that action for this is going to do more for the franchise than strategy would. I mean, you look at games like that are coming out, like Valorant. We talked about that earlier in the show. We talked about games like Call of Duty and CSGO and all these other games. Sure, they take strategy, but they're action games. And I think that this is a title, kind of like Halo, that would be very much so, it would be going in a great direction if you were doing more action than strategy as far as like the options and such that you make within the world. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least, what they decide to do, that being BioWare, moving into Mass Effect 4 or Andromeda 2. I would have to say, guys, most likely we're going to be seeing Mass Effect 4 or just a Mass Effect soft reboot. And as far as when are we going to see that? Well, it's probably going to be somewhere in the foreseeable future. I don't think that we need to worry about it never coming around ever again. Like lots of people thought that Mass Effect was done after Mass Effect 3. Now that we have been hearing more and more word about the continuation of the franchise, I think it's going to be coming out here at some point in the future. That's probably the next thing that they're working on over at BioWare. So my assumption, guys, would be that we're going to hear confirmation of maybe a title as to what it's going to be called either late this year or early next year. And then we'll probably really be able to get our hands on the game probably in late 2021, maybe early 2022. It'll be interesting without a doubt, guys. And I hope you guys are excited about it because I'm really excited to see more of Mass Effect and just don't want to see this game die. I think there's so much to explore with it. It reminds me of like StarCraft, reminds me of Star Wars, all of these games that have like just vast amounts of different planets, galaxies, things of that nature really need to be explored. But with that being said, everyone, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Would you want Mass Effect 4, or are you in the minority and you would want Mass Effect Andromeda 2? Let me know in the comment section below. And for more Mass Effect 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.